everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm, where I am your host, Peter, aka LPD Dubuque, the cringiest glover on YouTube. Yeah! Yeah. So, it's been a little while since I recorded one of these types of episodes where I'm doing a little bit more of the educational content, but I like talking about this stuff. This is things that I like to help people learn about, because there's so many different ways that we can go about gloving and different ideas that we can go about, that I'm just the type of person who really likes delving into these ideas and thinking of these weird, crazy ways to come up with new, just new stuff in gloving. Not necessarily just movesets and stuff like that, but I mean like with configuration, colors, flash patterns, all that stuff. I love working on that stuff. Okay, so what is it this week that I want to cover? Well, there's been a lot of discussion that I've had from a lot of other glovers. And one major thing that they like from some of my series, like the concept catalog, which if you have not seen, I have a playlist right over here. They like that I cover the concept, or even when it comes to my archetypes of gloving, which you'll also find right over here. They like that I cover it and summarize those in its totality so people can understand basically what they need to understand about it. But I don't go into the techniques fully. So, with that being said, we're going to start a new mini-series.
Oh.
Yes, I start many mini-series in these shows, and most of them don't even stay around long, so.
Why?
Oh. Yeah.
Meanwhile.
Anywho, so what is it this week that I want to teach you? Well, it's a programming method. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a programming method, but there's a lot of programming that goes into this, and it's the technique that's going to go in it. So this mini-series that I'm starting, as you probably saw from the title, it's called Technique Tactics. Okay, so this is where I really try to go more into a technique, or go into the methodology of the techniques needed to pull whatever I'm talking about off.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So for now, we're just going to start with something simple. Something that I feel makes it a lot easier for people to understand. And, it's a very simple concept that people can work around with, play around with, toy around with, and explore and expand upon. Because it's very simple and it's deal. Guess I can't think of words at this moment. So, allow me to explain what the Trinity Method is. First of all, let me give you a little bit of history. There was a chip that Amazing Lights made back in the day. People still use these today because it's one of those pet chips that people have. It's one of those first chips they ever got their hands on. It was the first thing that got them into programming, stuff like that. Which was affirmation name was the Elite Trinity. What makes this so interesting is that people figured out ideas to how to use the Trinity to a greater extent instead of just, I have 3 modes and I can just choose whichever mode I want. You're basically carrying 3 glove sets in one. That was the gimmick. But here's the thing. The Elite Trinities loop their modes. So you had 3 modes, but it would loop. This is where we're going to go into it. Alright, this is the basis of what you need to understand when it comes to the Trinity Method.
Good thing I brought my vape.
Is that you're going to use your lights that loop their modes the way they do to actually pull off something really, really cool. So let me just give you the definition of how I define the Trinity Method, which is basically a method in which the glover uses 3 mode configurations to either mix, accent, or highlight different aspects or different aesthetics within their performance. Okay, that is the best way I can put it. All right, there's not much more you need to understand. So with that being said, what do I mean by mixing, accenting, or highlighting? What do I mean by that exactly? Well, it's not that really hard to understand, but I'll elaborate a little bit. I'll try to keep it short. Mixing, basically what you need to understand is that it's combining all of your modes together. What do I mean by that? So in this example, and for a lot of the examples going forward, we're just going to work with my color theory idea. So what are the 3 primary colors? Red, green, blue. Boom, we got our 3 primary colors, right? So in this case of mixing, we're going to separate these 3 colors into their respective modes. So red is 1, green is 2, blue is 3. All right, you start it all on mode 1. Then as you're going through your show, you're just going to toggle to the next colors. Do you change all of them? No. You start mixing your colors together. So you might go, hey, I want to change my thumbs to blue and pinkies to blue, and then change my middles to green. Now you're mixing the colors in together. And then you start mixing configurations of the colors where they are on your fingers. That's the idea. The constellar archetype of my phasing, which you'll find the archetypes of glowing phasing right here. Go check it out. Uses this to a good effect. It typically wants to use 2 because you can get away with color conjuring. It's really, really cool. But the Trinity Method still works within the constellar archetype as well, because especially when you're doing the mixed portion, you're still mixing the colors around and changing them up. It gets really, really cool. And you can come up with really cool effects. But the other thing I'll also talk about is accenting. So accenting is basically using one or more colors or flash patterns placed to stand out amongst the rest. Very typically that I've seen is people would do their thumbs or their middle fingers or their thumbs and pinkies. I've seen some people just do their pinkies. I've even seen people do rings, like just doing a single, doing their ring fingers. It doesn't really matter where, but the goal is that it stands out amongst the rest of your colors or the rest of your fingers. I'm not going to say that everybody's like this, because I know not everybody's like this, but typically if your middle finger is the tallest finger, you want to stick your accent color there. Why? Is because during your certain dynamic movesets, it's going to stand out. It's going to stick out because it's the farthest point from the rotation axis, right? If I'm doing this, what part is the farthest part? It's that ring finger right there. Okay, if I'm doing a nice little wrist flail, my middle finger is the farthest point. Another thing I just want to point out, if your thumbs are being an accent and you have your thumbs in while you're doing this, during your flails, you have them tucked in, that's going to be highlighting it because it just sticks out. It's accenting the whole thing. Very simple. That's not much goes into it, right? Now, I will certainly say is when you go through the other modes, basically you still have that highlight concept going on. Or accent, as I should probably say.
Nailed it!
Okay, and the last one is basically highlight. It's either using your colors or your flash patterns, but is to help bolster the overall aesthetic of your show. A very typical way that I've seen people do highlighting is they either will do the index and ring fingers, or they'll do the thumb, middle, and pinkies. It's very typical, it mixes in very well, and they also stick out very, very well. It bolsters it all together, It's one of those things that I will certainly say is one of the things that you have to sit down and really kind of think critically when it comes to these. And of course, I'm always one of those people that say trial and error, tinker around with your configurations, work on them until you fine tune it into the set that you want. Okay?
5 minutes later.
So there are 3 major variants that I want to talk about when it comes to the Trinity Method that I want to get out of the way as soon as possible, okay? So the first one is the chromatic one, which is basically colors being the primary focus here. You're either adding or taking away a color, and it creates the sequence from a 1 color to a 3. Okay, so again, red, green, blue, you start with red, then you add in the green, so it's red, green, then you add in blue, so it's red, green, blue all around. This is a very typical thing you see. If you're watching my YouTube channel, then you're going to see the example here, where, if I remember correctly, it should be gummy. I know this is probably really dumb for me to say that, but yes, this is from the Micromax review set, but this is the idea, is that you're starting to see him add and take away colors. That is pretty much the chromatic effect. Is subtle, but still pronounced, and people who will take note of it will appreciate it. I certainly like this method, this particular setup, because it's very simple and people will notice it a lot.
Hell yeah, yeah, hell yeah.
Now, the next method, or the next variant as I will call it, is called the shutter method. And it's flash patterns being the primary focus rather than your colors. Now, you can still change your colors if you want, but I'm just saying there are flash patterns in this particular variant is your primary method. That is the primary focus of it all. There are many different ways you can go about it. Here are some ideas that I've seen in the past, where you go from the shortest shutter speed, which, if you don't know what I mean by shutter speed, is pretty much how long is the lights on to give that length. So if you look at dops, they're really, really tiny. If you look at full strobe, they're a little bit longer. Then you look at hyperstrobe, they're really long, right? That's the idea, is that you're using that kind of configuration to create this kind of effect, where you make them either longer or shorter. It's a little bit more subtle if you use only 1 color throughout your entire set and you want to just focus on the flash pattern shutter's length. It's very subtle, but people are going to see it and it's going to be like, whoa, when did that happen? It's actually really cool. And of course, the last one I want to talk about briefly is called the Aurora variant. No, it's not involving the chip. It's just a happy accident. But basically, this is where color blending comes into effect. Now, this is where you want to take a look at my intro to color theory right here. Go check it out. It's actually helpful. But this is where color theory comes into play with this setup. So again, with the example, we're going to use red, green, blue. What you're going to do is you're going to look at your 3 colors and go, okay, which 2 colors do I want to combine? In this case, I'm going to use red and green. Combine them together, what does that make? It makes yellow. Now I have a 2 color mode, which is yellow and blue. I'm going to combine them again. Boom, what does that make? It makes white. So you go from red, green, blue to yellow, blue to white. That is the Aurora configuration. That is that variant.
Okay.
I haven't seen a lot of people do this. I've seen it probably maybe once or twice in my life, but it is a really cool idea to have in your back pocket when you're kind of thinking of, well, it's a cool way to go about, using color theory. Well, there you go. Now, the same is true if you want to go in reverse. If you want to start with just all white lights, now you got to think about, okay, what color do I want to remove to make it stand out? So let's just say green as example. So what happens when you take green out of white? Well, you're left with magenta and green. And then you can take blue out of magenta, and now you have red, green, blue. Boom, boom, boom. You either go one way or the other. It depends on how you want to go about it. With that being said, let's talk about the simple technique that goes into this. So the idea or the thing that you need to keep in your head is 1 toggle moves forward. 2 toggles move back. Why is it that way? Because the loop, the mode loop that happens. So if you only have 3 modes, it's going to loop around like a nice little triangle. Mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 1, mode 2, mode 3. Right? That's the idea. So we're going to utilize this loop to our advantage. And how that happens is, say I'm on mode 1 and I go to mode 2 and I go to mode 3. But I want to go back to mode 2. Well, I can't just single click because then I'm going to go back to mode 1. But if I double click mode 1, mode 2, it looks like I essentially just moved back 1. That's the idea. That is the technique. Now, with that in mind, some people are going to ask me, well, it's hard for me to change them up on top and stuff like that. That's understandable. I will definitely... I feel you on that. Trust me, when I first started my phasing archetype building thing, all my lights were underneath. Why? It's because I did not have the strength or the dexterity to actually go and change the lights on top. However, through the years, I want to say about 2 years, I did it all underneath. I did it for about 2 years. During that time of changing all those lights, what I came to realize is I was building my muscle strength and all that stuff and all that dexterity when changing the lights. So now I can actually do stuff like that. Now granted, yes, I still have to do the pinkies underneath just because I can't really change the light on my right, because long story short, my right pinky is a little bit shorter than my left pinky, so my ring finger can't really touch it. So I just figured, you know what, I'll just keep it underneath. I can always do a little pinch to change the modes and still look good, But that's basically the idea. Is that you understand that there is a loop that your 3 modes go through, and toggling a single toggle forward, double toggle goes back. You utilize this to your effect. You're able to sit there and be like, I can separate all my colors, combine them all together. I can change all my colors to one set. I can change my flash patterns. Whatever variant you went with, this is where it's going to happen. And that's where you get to play with. That's where you get to be a little bit more creative, with your setups, because then you can be a lot more subtle. Your audience is probably not going to pick up on it right away, but as soon as they start to notice things like that, it's going to enrich their understanding of your performance overall, because there are layers to your show. Layers.
All right, I get it.
All right. So, I'll certainly say from my experience, start with pretty much your chromatic one. Just start with a chromatic, which is just adding colors and taking them away. Red, green, blue. Don't have to be those colors. I'm just using it as an example because that's a good default example for me. It's just the primary colors, all right? You have that because will certainly say your idle colors will start to change, and that adds to it all. There are a lot of subtleties and nuances when it comes to this particular method that people are going to notice. You know, your idle tints change. You know, the amount of colors being shown all at once changes, and it does really change how somebody perceives your show. You know, it's not just, oh, there's one single color that sets a mood. You add new colors so it changes the mood. That's the idea, okay? And this is a very simple, very, very simple method that people have done in the past.
2,000 years later.
So, I think that pretty much covers everything I need to cover. It's really not that hard to understand when it comes to this particular method. However, when it comes to your creativity, that's where things are going to be a little bit more challenging, but that's where it should be a lot more fun for you. So, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about, or certain methods like this. Again, you guys know I like talking about this stuff. It's been a while since I did an episode like this or recorded one, but who cares? Though, I know a lot of people are probably going to ask me a lot of questions about that, and that's totally fine. You have the various places you can hit me up at. You have the comment section down below. You can hit me up on my personal email, which is muttonchopguy@gmail.com. Here it is right here. Go check it out. And you, again, all down below, you have my Instagram. You have all these different places. You can hit me up: Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, all that stuff. I don't care. Just hit me up. Let me know. Talk to me. Let me know what you guys want to know about. If there's any topic ideas you guys want me to cover, let me know about that too. It's not a problem. I always like to hear that kind of stuff. But yeah, I certainly hope you guys did enjoy this. I just want to say thank you to all my listeners / watchers who've been loyal and watching and keeping up with me. I know I'm trying out new things. I'm trying out new different editing techniques. I certainly hope with your guys' feedback, it's actually coming out really well. Other than that, if you guys do like the content that I'm making, wish to help me make better content, you have the wonderful opportunity to donate to my Ko-Fi. Yes, I have a Ko-Fi now for one-time donations, so please donate to my Ko-Fi so I may continue to listen to lo-fi. Yep, that's my new slogan. Other than that, I don't really think there's any more I need to go into. So once again, thank you to all my supporters. Thank you to all my listeners / watchers. If this is the first time you're watching, please come back to the next episode. I have a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipeline. I have one video that I'm going to be working on that's probably going to take me a lot longer than to make. And I'm very, very nervous about releasing this one because it's not necessarily controversial, but a lot of people have opinions about it, and I get it. So, I don't know, we'll see how that goes. But other than that, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Please do not hesitate to ask me any questions. And I absolutely love you guys, but I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 the Buke, the cringiest Clover on YouTube. And I'll see you guys all next week.